awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic. And yeah, Graham, when he asked me if I would share, he pointed out that it was the 1-year anniversary of the Sunlight of the Spirit meeting. So it is an honor and a privilege to be back and to be able to share with you guys. And as I was saying before the meeting, it just made sense. When you go to a movie and then in the movie, they say the title of the movie in that little moment of, it just felt like we do one of those. So let's talk about the Sunlight of the Spirit. Let's talk about what we read today. And so to kick it off, when it says, it is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. You know what is interesting about that is it says a life, not the life of an alcoholic, not the life of an alcoholic in recovery, a life, as in any life, as in this is applicable to any human being. And to hold on to deep resentment, what the result of deep resentment is for any human being is futility and unhappiness. Sometimes we hear that saying, fear and faith can't live in the same house. And I don't think that's true. In fact, I think it actually talks about all men have faith, have courage. In fact, to have faith, I believe that I need to have fear to take that leap of faith, because if I don't have fear, what I have is simply trust. But what I know to be true is that serenity and self-centeredness cannot live in the same house. I cannot feel that sunlight of the Spirit, the presence of a power that is beyond myself, that freedom that is on offer, the real freedom that is on offer in Alcoholics Anonymous, and still be holding on to what you did and how you did it and how you need to have done it differently and what I think you need to do now. I can't live with those feelings. And that futility means that it is pointless. It gets me nowhere. And the unhappiness is the misery that pervaded my entire life before I even took a drink. And of course, while I was in my active alcoholism. But also that misery can, will, and does pervade my life when I am in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, but complacent in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It goes on to say, to the precise extent that we permit these, so that we allow ourselves to hold on to these resentments, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. So for the extent that I hold on to these resentments, that I don't get freedom from them, to the hours of my life that there might have been joy and freedom and peace and serenity and love and connection and unity, that is wasted by the erosion of it should have been like that. It needs to be like that. That should have been different. And, I playing the tape won't do nothing to keep me sober, but I will be playing the tape of my resentments on loop. It was a record, and that's got a groove, and the groove is you suck, and here's why. Maybe you guys don't relate. Maybe you're more spiritual in Scotland. But over in Canada, right, Rob, we got it bad. We got some resentments. And I will point out, that is the result of a resentment for any human being. Any human being that lives cannot experience resentment and serenity at the same time. For any human being that lives, a resentment will erode everything that is worthwhile in their life, will rob them of the gift of the present moment, will rob them of the gift of joy and freedom and happiness. But it goes on to say, but, with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. If we're like, what does infinitely grave mean? It means fatal. And if you're like, girl, I don't believe you, that's okay. The next line says we found that it was fatal. Sometimes I'll add my own little spice into the book, but that one's pretty cut and dry. And so what it's saying is that the best case scenario for resentment is that it erodes the meaning and purpose and joy and freedom in my life. But I don't have that luxury. You see, I'm not an average person. And some of you are like, yes, that is quite apparent. And some of you I know for many years. And you're like, girl, we know you are something else. And part of that something else is that I'm an alcoholic. And you see, to hold on to a resentment as an alcoholic, of course it will erode the things that are worthwhile in life. But what it will inevitably lead to is a relapse. Now, I don't believe that. I don't think that applies to me. I can see why that's not good for all of you. But no. I'm not going to drink over that relapse or on that resentment. No. But I forget that as an alcoholic, I do not have the ability to choose whether I will drink or not. It goes on to say, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. You know, that would be a really great name for a meeting. Perhaps one that happens virtually on a Thursday night, you know, with some lovely Church of the Good Shepherd folks. I think that would be a great name for a meeting. But you see, as an alcoholic, what I desperately need, what I need beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that sunlight of the Spirit. I don't think that, I don't know that, I don't believe that when I get here, but that's what I'm after. Now, that sunlight of the Spirit was everything that I was looking for in the bottle. And you know, it talks about, but with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, bear with me. Is there anyone here who ever experienced this thing, like having one drink? Do we relate to that? Absolutely freaking not. So why would I think that I can hold on to one experience? I couldn't stay well on one drink. I can't stay well on one spiritual experience. I need to continue to grow and to seek and to have these experiences. It says maintenance, which doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun, and growth of a spiritual experience. Now I'm going to share something with you guys that is going to annoy you. So I'm going to describe some drinking, and you guys let me know if you relate. So does anyone relate to taking out a glass? Now, I know I've lost some of you guys already, but you take out a glass and you grab a bottle of whatever it is. Just imagine that alcohol that that like whether it's a scotch, whether it's like a vodka or a tequila, maybe it's a beer. But imagine you open up that bottle and you pour it into the glass, and then we set it down, and we set down the glass, and then, sorry, I was getting a call on the other line. Nope, I don't know if you can hear it when it comes through. I can, and it startles me, which, not good if halfway through the show, I'm like, but we pull out that bottle, we pour it into that glass, we set it down. And then what happens is we get some ice. And we take out that ice and we put that ice in the glass. And then we stir it around. Then maybe, you know what? Maybe we get an umbrella. I don't know. I just feel like, and then we set it down. Do we relate to that? And then we maybe take a little sip, just a little sip, and then we put it down, and the ice starts to melt, and it makes a little rim of water right around the top of the glass. Do we drink like that? Absolutely not. I've given everyone here a resentment. All of you are like, oh, get it in ya, you know? But that is how I want to do my Alcoholics Anonymous. Despite the fact that is how I have absolutely never drank in my life, or at least that's been my experience. You know, I want to sip my AA. I want to take my time with AA. I want to let the resentment melt in the glass. I don't want to deal with it. I want to minimize it. I want to avoid it. But here's my experience. I've got to go after this thing. I've got to go after the spiritual experience. I've got to go after the spiritual awakening, just like I went after a drink. Now, bear with me. We're bouncing around, and those that know me are not surprised. We're like, what took you so long? Let's go to page 64. And it is the bottom full paragraph where it says, resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. So from a resentment can all forms of spiritual disease grow. And it says, for we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. Now, when we talk about being mentally ill, what we are singularly referring to is the obsession of the mind. The thought that I have when I am sober that takes me back again and again to the first drink. A thought that tells me this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I've just got to get it out of my system. You know, my problem was drinking with Canadians. There's no alcoholics in Scotland. It'll be different this time, so here's how. That thought, that is the obsession of the mind. And then it says, and we have been physically ill. Now, when we talk about being physically ill, what we're talking about singularly is the allergy of the body. Once I start to drink, that thing inside of me that tells me I need more. And the more that I drink, the more that I need to drink. I take that drink and I need another. And that second drink demands a fourth. And my fourth drink will not relent until I've had 8. And my 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. That sounds a little more familiar. None of that ice melting in the glass sort of drinking. You know, I drink and I need more. And that is alcoholism. The fact that I can never ever safely drink again because of the allergy of the body. But also the fact that I will drink again. And that is because of the obsession of the mind. That is alcoholism. And it says, for we've been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. Now that spiritual sickness is what Dr. Silkworth described as restless, irritable discontent. We spoke about it on page 52, the bedevilments of feeling of uselessness, loneliness, a sense of I can't make a living, a feeling of uselessness. I can't seem to be of real help to other people. Now I cannot diagnose my alcoholism based on the spiritual malady. Because there's other people. You'll find them driving in the roundabouts. You take the M8 all the way out to Glasgow, you'll find some spiritually sick people on that M8. I'm sure. I was going to do the whole roads thing. Focus. I was going to be like, we could go up to Falkirk and see the Kelpies. Focus. There might be some spiritually sick people by the Kelpies, you know. But that is what we treat in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we treat that with the spiritual awakening. And how we experience that is through the 12 steps. And it says, when the spiritual malady is overcome, so when I treat that sense of emptiness, that sense of loneliness, that pain, that isolation, that depression, and we treat it with the spiritual malady, or with the spiritual awakening, and we get that spiritual awakening through the 12 steps as outlined in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. That is what Alcoholics Anonymous is. And when I do that, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. And what that means is the mental obsession is gone. It is lifted from us. And if the insane thought that I have to take that first drink is gone, I don't take that first drink. I can't not take that first drink on my own willpower, or just going to meetings or just talking about it. Nothing less than a spiritual experience that I grow and I deepen is going to work for an alcoholic like me. But as a result of that, the mental obsession leaves. And if the mental obsession leaves, I do not take that first drink. And if I do not take that first drink, I do not set off the phenomenon of craving. And so going back to page 66, when it says, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The sole purpose of the 12 steps is to clear away the stuff inside of me that is blocking me from that connection to God, higher power, creator, the Spirit of the universe. I am without power. There is nothing that I can do to stop myself from taking that first drink. And the 12 steps clear away the stuff between me and that power. And if I am shut off from that power, and what cuts me off, my selfishness, my self-centeredness, my resentments, my guilt, my shame, my fears, that cuts me off. It says the insanity of alcohol returns. The insanity of alcohol is the obsession of the mind, the thought that I have before I take that first drink. And we drink again. And that's what step 1 is. I will drink again. I don't have the luxury of holding on to resentments. I don't have the luxury of minimizing them. And that I promise that I will drink again is the obsession of the mind. And with us, to drink is to die. And that is the allergy of the body. Now, if we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm. A brainstorm is a sudden explosion of anger, were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. So just as much as I need to be free of the resentments that are driving me, and I know I'm wrapping up, the resentments that are driving me in step 4 is just as much as I need to continue to be free of resentments in step 10 and step 11. The columns that I pick up and learn at this point of the book are not things that I set on the shelf and I leave. They are how I live my life. I utilize those columns to get that freedom in step 10. And if I miss things during the day, and believe me, I do, I utilize those columns in the evening review to get freedom. But the result of that, it is not a trudge, it is not pain, it is not suffering, it is freedom. And the more that I do that, the more that I get to experience that sunlight of the Spirit. So again, thank you guys so much for the privilege of being here with you and speaking at your 1-year anniversary. Thank you so much.